Hi, Randy. I thought you weren't here.
I
Did
wasn't.
you just slip in?
My wife was released from the hospital. The stress test came back negative, so
good.
she did have a heart attack, but she's not being kept tonight. She was kept last night, so.
Oh my goodness, we'll give her our best.
Appreciate that.
Oh my
so.
goodness.
So she's out in the car. She might come in. Oh, no, she did come in.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
So this is dedication, right?
This
That or
is
insanity.
true dedication. Wow. Yeah. Okay, we're going to start testing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be real brief because I obviously don't have any prepared remarks, but I did want to make a few comments. And I was watching online earlier, and I know that some of these points have been addressed, but the question of, is there research that proves this method of teaching is effective, was not really answered. They said they'll send you some research, but the research they talked about was the research they were doing. It wasn't based on an empirical study of, is this method effective? So I really want y'all to look for that research, because I know it doesn't exist. Dr. Milgram knows it doesn't exist. We've talked to him. So if that research exists, I'd love to see it. I've been asking for it for 2 years. So that's one thing. Oh, Mr. Allen's not here. I wanted to thank him. Oh, there you are. I want to thank you for pointing out that the way the STAR is being said that there's improvement, you are absolutely correct. You can't compare it to last year's standards. You got to compare it to this year's. Thank you for making that point. Knowledge and skills should always be taught with the inclusion of conceptual understanding. I think Chris hit on those points. The reformed math people have always said that the kids are just taught to memorize, 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 and that has never been the case. And I've tried to make that point clear. But you don't continue these models well into upper grades. Like the sixth grade that I gave you yesterday, testing TEKS 6.10, it calls for models. And this particular model, which is on page 48, the model does nothing to help you actually solve this problem. It's 27 with 12 P's underneath in a box. It doesn't help you divide that 27 by 12 and get 2 1/4. The model is completely useless, yet a sixth grader has to use that model. This is the kind of stuff we're talking about. Modeling should happen in the early grades, but not later than third grade. By third grade, they should be getting down to their facts.
Randy, where was this on your handout thing?
Page 48.
48, sorry.
This has 53 pages of those kind of examples from the 2015 test and the 2016 test. Now, the thing I was actually going to give you all today was my analysis of all the 2016 tests. And I will say that the questions are actually better this year than previous years. There's less on just testing a process, so I was impressed with that. But there are 2 mistakes, one in 8th grade and one on the algebra. So I'll send those to you via email because I didn't have a chance to finish that. I'll wrap up. I know that was my bell. But I forget which testifier it was yesterday that said, yes, we still teach the standard algorithms, but because of all these other 7 or 8 ways of doing it, the pictorial models and area model and all that stuff, she says, yeah, we still teach the standard algorithm, but it's pushed out. And that's where the problem lies. When you push out that more efficient way to solve the problem, the kids don't get that base understanding of how the algorithms work to apply it to upper level math. So that was the point I wanted to make. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Randy. Anybody have a question for Randy? Yes, Mr. Rowley.
I'm kind of violating our own rule about making this in the form of the question, but I'll kind of lift my voice at the end like it's a question, okay? But at least, hopefully, you've seen, I hope, is this true, Randy? Let me put it this way, that you've seen a level of response as a result of your diligent, concerted, dedicated effort to bring this issue to the attention to this board, in the sense that, I mean, personally, I think you and Lori and John and others who have been here testifying were the impetus for us having this work session yesterday. honestly. I mean, because you had brought it to our attention, and you are the voice of, as Chris said, the voice of the consumer, the customer, the parent, and as a result of that voice and what you all have brought here, that's why we had the conversation yesterday. Now, whether or not it's going to come out the way you all would like to see it come out is, part of the process. It's, just the way it is. But
You want to keep seeing me, don't you?
I love you, Randy. I really feel like I've gotten to know you a lot better than I ever would have, if it were not for this. But hopefully, let me ask, hopefully you see a level of response anyway to the fact. And I hope that you take with you a sense of accomplishment, in the sense that you all have been here, brought this to our attention, and were it not for your voice, yesterday probably wouldn't have occurred, nor would this conversation today.
And
Do you
I do
agree?
appreciate that. Yes, I do agree. I appreciate it. I will not take credit for it, because there's been a lot of people that are fighting this battle. John, Chris, Lori, a lot of us have been looking at this, but we do recognize that y'all are trying to address the problems.
Miss Miller and Mr. Mercer.
I want you to have the credit.
Thank you so much for coming forward. But my question is, here, just like I said earlier, what would you do in this situation?
I've actually taken these standards and started marking them up and looking at what Dr. Milgram put in place in California when he cleaned up the same type of reform math there. I'm actually going to give you at least elementaries, but I've also started on even all the way up into algebra. As I've reviewed these problems and looked at the wording that creates the issues, I've been actually striking those. I haven't gone back and reordered anything, because I do think I've made notes of things that I think are out of place or out of order, but I haven't tried to add anything. I'm just striking the things that I think need to be gone. Like if you just remove the process standards, and this was made earlier, it doesn't solve the problem, because you've got these methods called out in the content standards. And Nikki told us yesterday that was never meant to be, and they would have changed that had they had a chance to do a final review after everything was stitched together.
Okay.
So she agrees that you don't list out 7 different, and that 3.4 that John was talking about earlier, that's the same one I've been talking about. 7 different methods are called out. And because they're called out, they have to be tested on the assessment. And you see it in the assessment. And since it's on the assessment, it's in the curriculum. It has to be taught. So 7 different ways of teaching multiplication and division, and that takes time. That's how things get pushed off into later years. And calculus will not be available for high school students in the next year or two if we don't start making the change. Because since it isn't tested, they're not going to offer it. Kids aren't going to take it. So that's you see that in states like California. They've already dropped calculus from their curriculums.
Really?
Yes.
Another question. Then we're in a dilemma that we, board that has already approved these standards, okay, and math standards, and the books, and they're out there, okay, and the test is out there. So I don't see how we can go back, to the beginning, even though ideally maybe you want to. So do you have any suggestions?
I'll know more when I'm through with my markups.
Okay.
I don't have a solution either.
Yeah.
That's why we're here talking about it.
Yeah.
What can we do? What should we do? And I know there was a parade of people yesterday and today saying we don't need to do anything.
Right.
But I think y'all know that isn't true. And when you look at the interest that those people have, they're the ones who wrote this. What you need to get are the people who, like Dr. Milgram, who walked away from this because he didn't agree with what was happening. Get Nikki Hayes back in here and talk to her for longer than 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was very impressed with her yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And we do appreciate that invite. We know that he's the one who said no to coming.
Right. Yeah, subpoena him, yeah. I think it is important to just address the folks who spoke to us. This was a recommendation that staff was, because we asked them specifically to give us the background and history of how the development of the standard. That was a specific request of the board, and that's who came to speak to us, was what we asked for, which is talk to us about the development, what were you looking at, what did you consider, you know, why did you do the process? I mean, I gave them a list of, what was 12 questions or something? It was a long list of very specific problems and issues we were struggling with, and asked for their input on. So that's who it was. Dr.
Yeah.
Milgram was invited and chose not to participate. Unfortunately, we would have liked to have heard from him.
And I thank you for extending the invitation to me. I realize you didn't have to do that. Thank you for letting me
No,
do it.
absolutely. Well, member Rowley requested, and I think other members wanted to as well. Plus, we want to hear the parent voice first. So, Mr. Mercer and then Dr. Dominguez.
And I really appreciate the term voice of the customer. I keep talking business-wise. I know the commissioner and his life too, when I hear that, because now I'll get I'll continue my voice. My question is, good morning. The three of y'all, Chris, John, Laurie's not here, and Randy,
Lori was here earlier. She had to leave to get her kids.
are
It was
any of y'all
earlier today.
educators?
Well, I will tell you,
Or
I'm not an
math
educator,
background?
but I do actually do free tutoring for
I
just
think
about
all of you are
everybody.
engineers, aren't you? All
John and I
three?
are engineers, yes. Lori's a doctor. She's a
Chris, an engineer or
pediatrician.
what?
Chris, what are you?
So an MBA, 2 engineers, and a doctor, so you're just pretty much the average parents we have, right, in Texas?
Well, I will say this. I probably have more practical applications of mathematics than all of your testifiers yesterday combined. I know more about the application of mathematics in industry than any of them.
I was being facetious. My point was that in terms of if 2 engineers, an MBA, and a pediatrician are having trouble with their kids, you're not the average moms and dads, and that's what kind of worries me. Let me get back to what we can do, because I keep thinking about the arguments we had before in social studies, for example, the such as versus including. In my mind, what I'm seeing is we're seeing these methods and processes, and I think we meant to say such as, but not including all 6 or 7. And
Yeah.
maybe that's the problem. Maybe we need guidance from the board saying, hey, whenever you see a method or a process, I'm being simplistic, but maybe our answer is, our guidance should be, hey, there's a problem here. These processes and methods are such as. We never meant you to say, in addition to being what's called was it a mile wide and an inch deep, Thomas, we're also going to have a third dimension where we want 7 processes.
Right.
So I'm wondering, for guidance to the board, is it possible, and I know it's not simplistic, and I know what Tyncy and Marty are trying to go to, maybe it's that, maybe we need a message guidance saying we never meant to, in addition to all these standards, to require all these processes. It's a such as process, whichever works for the child, but we never meant to say every process. Board members, am I hitting on something? Am I understanding? Because and we've discussed such as including on many different topics, and I see that problem here where maybe an educator sees that and thinks, I've got to teach every process to do this.
Well, they actually do, since it's called out in the content
And
standards.
because
So I
it's-
think if you took them out of the content standards, left them in the introduction of each grade, I think that's fine. And none of us are opposed to actually the idea behind these process standards of applying it to everyday life and thinking about being able to communicate your ideas. But that's not where the priority lies. The priority lies is can you do the computation and can you get the correct answer? Can you do it the most efficient way, and are you correct in your answer?
And that's the real
what's
world.
important.
That's the real world.
That's the real world.
Right answer.
How TASM's treating it. They're
Right.
treating it such as.
I mean,
Now, if you took those, and made them such as, and that, I think it was Mr. Yo's yesterday who said, creating a separate document that gives examples of how you can teach some of these things, I think that would be great. But I don't think they need to be in the TEKS. I don't
Well,
think they need to be
but
in the
changing the whole thing one by one, as Tyncy mentioned, is very problematic, but maybe an overall guidance saying every method and process is a such as, never meant to be including all. But I have one more real important question.
Let me just interject just one thing, Mr. Mercer. What we need to do, we have 6 more items on the agenda.
Yes.
And we are losing people that have to testify to us about
Well-
these items. So I want to, this is posted as an
I
action
understand,
item.
but this has
We
been
need
2
to-
years and these parents have been doing
Right.
this, and I'd rather, like Mr. Rowley said last time, we're getting tired of, not tired of y'all, I'm tired of saying we can't do anything about it. And I don't like that answer, but please move to District 5 as soon as
Okay.
possible. Love to have you. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Dominguez, do we have any more for Randy or? Or do we
Well,
want
I
to just have,
just
we
wanted-
just need to move
Yeah,
on
I
to?
just wanted to mention to him, thank you, because of you, we did have all the training that we had. And so I now clearly understand that the process is the way we should go, because weren't we shown on Monday that our students are scoring well in math? And so I just
Well,
want
I
to tell you,
question
thank
that
you.
because a passing in Algebra 1's at 37%, so I'm not sure where some of that's coming from. And as low as 50 on some of the other grades, so how much do they really understand?
No, I think she was talking about the NAEP. You were talking about the NAEP?
Yeah.
Not the state test, I'm talking about the NAEP.
Okay.
I think it's what she was talking about.
It-
Well, it was NAEP.
Yeah,
It was NAEP.
NAEP has held fairly steady, not shown any increase. The increase was in the prior years before that. The last 2 years have kind of held steady. So I'm,
Mr.
yeah,
Maynard, did
well, they've
you?
implemented this a few years ahead of
Are you
us,
done?
so.
Do we have any more testifiers on this issue?
I think that's it for the test powers, correct?
And if I'm not mistaken, this is a,
It's
this is
an
an
action
action item?
This is an action item.
And this will be for first reading, so.
Yes.
I know that I'm not sure when to bring this up, but I'd kind of like to hear from the field. I know TASM is putting together a survey, and I don't know if there's a way we could postpone this, or I don't know
I
what the
mean,
correct terminology.
I can entertain a motion as to what we should do. So, yes. Ms. Hardy's hand was up, or no, Mr. Maynard, you were still talking.
I still was, yeah, so.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
You can choose just not to take
So I'm
action.
just,
Yeah, we
So-
can choose not to take action, but we'd have to vote not to take action, wouldn't we?
I
Or
don't
no?
think, so. You just don't, there's no motion, you take no action, then the
Okay.
item does not go forward. Right.
Committee has no, oh, I see, okay. So, Mr. Maynard, did you have a motion or something, or did you want to just, what do you want to do?
yeah, I'm gonna move that the State Board of Education suspend the board operating procedures in accordance to 5.2A to allow the consideration of first reading and filing authorization, to approve for first reading and filing authorization proposed amendments to 19 TAC, Chapter 111, Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for Mathematics, Subchapter A, Elementary, Subchapter B, Middle School, and Subchapter C, High School.
So, this is basically